Alright. There's a Pokemon fighting game out there, and if you haven't played it yet, it is f***ing awesome. It plays a lot like any 2D fighter, except it's Pokemon, so obviously it's way better. In the game's current iteration, there are only 9 playable characters, and understandably so, because it's an indie game. But what other Pokemon should join the battle? To answer that, here's my top 5 Pokemon that I'd like to see in Type Wild.
5.
Coming in at number 5 is SCIZOR. SCIZOR is the evolution of one of my favorite Gen 1 Pokemon, Scyther, and is basically just a badass red-looking version. Instead of the bladed hands that Scyther sports, SCIZOR has much more practical pincers, which are said to be made at least partially of steel and can crush any hard object into bits. While SCIZOR would be able to fight normally with his hard pincers, he'd also have strong grab attacks, which would be interesting to see from a character so agile.
4.
Up next on the list is MISMAGIUS. MISMAGIUS is the evolved form of Misdreavus, who is a Pokemon that feeds on fear, which is really frightening if you think about it. The evolved form, MISMAGIUS, is equally frightening and does all of its damage using incantations. I think it would be cool to see a character that was largely based on incantations, being able to use them as ranged attacks against enemies or to buff itself for close quarters combat. I'd see MISMAGIUS as a zoning character with a little bit of versatility for up-close combat, though it would be weakest at close range and would need to use its Levitate to escape danger when rushed into a corner.
3.
Next up on the list is MAGCARGO. MAGCARGO is the evolution of Slugma, and if you couldn't tell from its snail-like body, it is very slow. They're both fire and rock-type Pokemon, and though not very mobile, can deal quite a bit of fire damage. Why would it be cool for a fighting game? Well, I like the idea of characters that aren't very mobile that can also dish out tons of damage. Plus, for a snail, he looks pretty cute. If he wouldn't melt my skin off from touching him, I'd totally pet him a lot.
2.
Coming in at number 2 is PSYDUCK. I know what you guys are thinking. Why a PSYDUCK? Well, I think it would be interesting to see a character whose abilities and damage became stronger when it was injured. PSYDUCK, for those of you who may not know, is a Pokemon that always has a headache. When the headache gets really bad, PSYDUCK releases intense, violent psychic energy capable of taking down even the strongest of Pokemon. While PSYDUCK would seem weak at first in combat, the more you mashed his head in, the stronger he'd become. You'd never want to count him out of a fight.
1.
Finally, the number 1 spot, the Pokemon I'd most like to see in Type Wild is MAGIKARP. Every fighting game needs a good troll character. Mortal Kombat had Johnny Cage. Street Fighter had Dan Hibiki. Type Wild should have MAGIKARP. It's a terrible Pokemon. His only real attack is Splash, which just sort of sends him up into the air and out of the water. And though it is insanely weak, with a full Super Muter, much like Jean Grey in Marvel vs. Capcom, MAGIKARP would evolve into the monstrous Gyarados. The trick with MAGIKARP would be building up enough Super Muter with its weak attacks in order to be able to evolve at the end of the match.
I don't want to be your master!
Well, there you have it, my top 5 Pokemon I'd like to see in Type Wild. There are so many more that I wanted on the list, but obviously I can only pick 5, so comment below or tweet me at Sohinki and tell me some of your favorites. I'll see you guys next time. I hope you guys enjoyed that top 5. If you want to see another top 5 about Pokemon, you should definitely check out our top 5 grossest Pokemon. And if you haven't checked it out yet, be sure to watch our honest game trailer for Pokemon. When we give silly names to all 151 originals, it's pretty hilarious.